One rework slash rebalance for every attacker in Rainbow Six Siege. Drop a like on this video and let's get into this. Starting off with Sledge, I would give him back his SMG-11. It will just make people happy. I don't think it will change much about him, but I'm not against him having it. And I would also give him that little rework slash buff, which I made a concept about, in which if you are on the receiving end of Sledge's breaching, the wood shrapnel, which has been propelled towards you, will cause a small little damaging concussion effect, as well as a limping effect similar to when you pull yourself out of a frost mat, only for 2 or 3 seconds. This will give Sledge an extra little bit of depth to his gadget, and help him stand out a little bit more amongst Buck and Ram. I'd maybe even consider giving him the secondary hard breach charge. For Glaz, I would maybe do a little tweak to how his thermal scope works. So let's say if someone stands on the other side of a mirror window, you can see their outline through the mirror window. Now you can't shoot through it, you will have to wait for them to peek, but this will give Glaz a little advantage over someone playing a mirror, give him quite a unique interaction, and it will also cause people who are on a mirror window to be scared to peek a Glaz while still being able to do so and still being able to win. Okay, so I don't know if we should actually go through this one, but if you guys aren't aware, back when Nomad was first revealed, she was actually a pretty different operator from the test server to the actual launch of the operator. Now, I wasn't on PC at this time, so I never got to try this version of Nomad, but basically, her air jabs from the time of her reveal and to the end of the test server detonated instantly the moment it was in the area of effect of an enemy. So simply, if Nomad shot her air jab at anyone, they would instantly get knocked on their ass and get swung by Nomad. And of course, she could still place them on flanks and they would work as they currently do. But that was deemed too overpowered, so of course we have that little delay we have now. Anytime an air jab is shot, it takes a few seconds to actually activate. But I don't know, maybe playing around with that idea again, maybe not to the same extent, could be pretty fun to look into and could be an interesting update to Nomad. For Gridlock, I would simply make her track stingers do more damage than they currently do. I think they need to be seen more lethal than they currently are, and I think there needs to be more of a scare for defenders to push through them. I just want them to be more of an oppressive gadget than they currently are. And also, if you do walk in a track stinger, give the same limping effect that you get when you pull yourself out of a frost mat and make it last for a few seconds, as well as leaving a blood trail. Don't really think much needs to happen to Thatcher. I'd maybe give him the option as the Gon 6 as a secondary. A lot of people think he has been replaced by the secondary EMP impact nade. I disagree and still think Thatcher has a massive place in this game, and I think the Gon 6 would suit his loadout. Ashe is another operator who I think is actually pretty well balanced. A lot of people may disagree because people play her a lot, but that doesn't mean she's overpowered. That just means people like to play her as an entry fragger. From a gadget standpoint, I'd maybe give her a 3rd breaching round. This is something she used to have and was later removed, but I wouldn't mind seeing it again. For Thermite, it was teased at the year 9 reveal that he would be potentially getting the ballistic shield at some point. This would be the same standard shield in which Fuze has, which has no special ability, and would be a 3rd primary weapon option alongside his AR and shotgun. I believe this never came because shields were extremely overpowered up until Operation Collision Point, so I feel now with them being nerfed and in quite a balanced state, it might be quite a good time to look into giving Thermite the ballistic shield once again, as I think that would be quite an interesting role to give Thermite, especially if he's going for breach and going for a plant. Having a shield to cover him whilst he goes for a plant would be really fun. Monty is probably known as the most oppressive shield operator, and despite the shield nerfs that I was just talking about, I still think he brings a little bit too much by having access to the impact EMP grenades, as it doesn't require him to peek much of his body to throw it. So him just being able to EMP a doorway himself behind a bunch of cover and then just walk in and be oppressive doesn't really fit Monty's playstyle in my opinion. Very simply, I would remove impact EMP nades from his kit. Twitch is quite a simple one for me. I would just give the F2 a grip again, or at least look into other ways of rebalancing that weapon. For a majority of players, the F2 is too hard to control, and even if you are in the high ranks and can control the F2 quite well, there's not really a point in bringing it over the 417 DMR. The DMR can open up hatches, it can hard counter Azami's Kiba barriers, and as well as this, it is just simply more reliable than the F2 even if you have good aim. So I think a huge reevaluation of the F2 needs to happen. Whether giving it a grip may simply simply just make it better. If you give it less recoil but lower the damage because it has quite a high fire rate, maybe that's something you could do as well. I just think having a weapon that the majority of the player base can't control or use, and even those who can use it, it gets overshadowed by the DMR, is just a bit of a waste of a weapon. Dare I say we even go to the point of removing the F2 from Twitch, buffing it, and then giving it to a new operator who suits him more than her? Maybe that's too far, but something needs to happen with that gun. Not really sure what I'd do with Blitz. I'd probably just give him an extra flash, so 5 instead of 4. That means if used correctly, he does have 1 flash available for each defender, especially with how somewhat easy it is to counter a Blitz. I think him having this opportunity in 0.01% of scenarios to use a flash on each defender would be pretty cool and just helps reinforce his gadget. For IQ, I'd like to give her EMP impact grenades. I think that would suit her ability and loadout very well. I doubt they'll ever do it because it would probably be classed as a one-man army, which is what they said they've wanted to avoid in operators. However, operators such as Dokkaebi and Legion have been one-man armies for years now and nothing's been done about them, and I don't even think giving IQ EMP impact grenades would make her a one-man army. I think it would be really fun. If they're not going to do that, I would maybe add an additional little bit to her gadget. So keep her gadget as it still works. You can see electronics on defense, you can ping them to your team, but maybe give her a ping sweep option as well. Sort of similar to Solace, if she holds down X or whatever input, for example, it will ping all the defending gadgets in her gadget's viewable area, just if there's too many to ping at once. She can maybe do this 1 or 2 times, and it could be especially useful in a post-plant situation or identifying a lot of cameras. Despite what people may say, I think Fuze is a perfectly good operator. I love his gadget, his primaries. I think secondary hard breach fits him very well. I think a pocket shotgun such as the ITA-12S would be very fitting in his loadout. The only thing you would have to worry about though is how would that work with a shield. But I guess if you have the shield equipped, the game will just not allow you to choose the pocket shotgun. But I think that would be pretty cool on Fuze. For Striker, I would probably just give them an even more expanded loadout with different weapon classes and just more freedom to really make them that Swiss Army knife operator like they currently are, but just expand on it even more. Buck is probably my favorite operator in the game, and I think he is absolutely perfect. I guess something that you could add back to him would be his frag grenades. I think it was fair enough that you lost them, but I also don't think it's terrible if he gets them back either, because he did lose his frag grenades in the era of the pre-nerfed frag grenades, where nades were a lot more oppressive than they were now. So I wouldn't be against him getting his nades back. It's a different time and place. Although I still would probably run hard breach on him, I think nades would be cool in his loadout. Blackbeard, despite having his brand new rework, which is really good in my opinion, does need a little tweak visually, and that's to help emphasize when his ballistic glass is covering his head or when it's currently down and his head is exposed. Because in his current state, it's actually quite hard to tell whether it's up or down because the glass is clear. So my friend Glenny made a really good YouTube video which you should check out, but he made a concept of basically making Blackbeard's glass ballistic shield look the same as a mirror window. From Blackbeard's perspective, it looks exactly the same as it currently does. It doesn't change anything when you're playing Blackbeard. But from the enemy standpoint, they get to see this more Black Mirror looking window, which will clearly highlight to them whether his ballistic shield is covering his head or he is exposed with his weapon deployed. Really good concept, and I highly recommend checking out Glenny's video. For Capitao, this one may not necessarily be a buff, but I guess an overhaul to fire in general, and I think that would just be making the visual area of the flames itself much more clear. I feel like sometimes it's quite hard to tell where the edges of Capitao's fire lay, and sometimes maybe due to it being quite bright, you can hardly even see the flames itself. I just think maybe a clearer area of effect when it comes to Capitao's flaming bolts might be helpful for both the attackers and the defenders, and I think it will just allow people to understand it a bit more and allow them to make more plays off of it. For Hibana, I think a really cool little rework would be a new autofill option, where you can aim at a wall, choose a starting point and an end point, and then when you click the shoot button, the game will automatically disperse the required amount of Cairo pellets to fill in the gap you have selected and let you open that desired size of a hole. Let's say I want to make a breach size similar to Thermite. I select my top point, I select my bottom point, I shoot, the Kairos make that distance between them, and it will open at my desired size. Of course, this will take a required amount of Cairo pellets. The bigger the hole means more X Cairo pellets, which means less throughout the round. But not only would this make Hibana even more flexible, I also think this would help fix some of the issues where, let's say you you place some Kairos at the bottom, you place them a little bit higher, and then there's that little bit of reinforcement left in the middle, and you actually can't walk through it. I don't know, I just think this would be quite a really nice buff to Hibana, and I don't think it would make her overpowered at all, because it's still something you could already do right now. It just makes it a bit more streamlined, user-friendly, and will help her be much more of a desirable pick. Jackal is regarded as one of the most frustrating attackers to play against. I think one of the easiest ways to knock him down a peg is simply by removing his pocket shotgun. A lot of the time, this is used to make holes in the floor to find footprints on different floors, and then start tracking someone. I think removing the pocket shotgun from his loadout just makes it harder for him to do this, although it is still available for him to do by shooting through the floor of his gun. It just doesn't give him the same level of effectiveness which he currently has, while still keeping his gadget the exact same. It's not a major nerf, it just knocks him down a peg, and I wouldn't be against seeing it. Next up we have Ying, an operator who did get a nerf in Operation Collision Point, removing the instant detonation of her Candela. Defenders now have a little bit more of an opportunity to destroy the Candela before it detonates. I think something they could do to Ying though that could be quite cool is similar to what they've done to Sens, is add an option to deploy a Candela but not to detonate instantly. Then when you toggle it to turn on, the Candela would begin its flashing sequence. During this time of inactivity, it can still be shot like any other Candela can, but that would theoretically mean that Ying could pre-place a Candela, rotate to a window at the other side of the site, detonate her Candela at the other side, then push through. You could also do the same as well when you have it prepped in a floor or a wall. Next up we have Zofia. What I would firstly do is make her a 2 speed again. A lot of people do not like her being a 1 speed, which is fair enough. Doesn't bother me too much, but if it's going to get more people to play Zofia, why not? I think that's kind of it for Zofia, to be honest. She just got the hard breach charge recently, which I think really fits in her kit, and I would like to see Zofia become a main staple operator once again. For Dokkaebi, me personally, I would remove her impact EMPs. I would also remove her Gone 6. She already does way too much with her gadget anyway, and I would also once again make Echo immune to Dokkaebi's calls. Finka's kind of a hard one because she has a somewhat shallow gadget, and I think her loadout's fine. If you're in a goo mine, Finka's healing effect doesn't work. I would maybe change this for the healing effect to override the goo mine's effect, but when the healing effect ends, the goo mine then continues its effect. It doesn't necessarily just flat out stop it, but it only temporarily suppresses it until the healing is done. Why? Because fuck Legion. Just like Finka, I say Lion is another hard one. The only thing I can kind of think of is there are certain movements which don't get detected by a Lion scan. So if you're like midway through placing a gadget and a Lion scan happens, the game doesn't recognize that as movement. So I'd maybe try and make more micro movements which aren't detected be detected by Lion's EE1D, just to truly punish anyone from properly moving. Next up we have Maverick. Give him his frag grenades back, please. I like them. Bye. For Nokk, I would bring back her silent step. It's part of what made her Nokk. The stealthy operator should be stealthy, and I saw nothing wrong with it. Bringing back silent step is the final thing they need to do for her. For Amaru, I would give her more locations to use her grappling hook, such as mezzanines inside of buildings. I'd also allow her to fly outside of windows whilst inside the building. I just feel like a game where the majority of the gameplay and action takes place inside the building, having an operator who can kind of only do one thing inside the building, and that's go up hatches, is a bit useless. I think the concept of Amaru can be so much more, and is currently heavily slept on, and honestly, I wouldn't mind a year 10 remaster of this operator. Next up we have Kali. A big issue for a lot of people is the sniper. I personally don't mind the sniper, but I think it'd be kind of cool if you could just put a one-time scope on the sniper, or it could be like a flip scope, sort of similar to Glaz, because Glaz was originally conceived as a sniper operator, and he was developed with the option of having a one-time scope as a sniper operator. Now, of course, over the years, Glaz's sniper has evolved into a DMR instead, and Kali is now the main sniping operator. And I think adding a flip scope to her would be interesting, and it would just make her a lot more playable for a lot of people. I'm fine with the sniper, but I would also like this. Iana, the human drone, does her role pretty well. I think the only thing I would change about Iana is if the defender does choose to shoot her hologram, then simply ping them the same way Alibi works. If Iana's role is intel, this fits perfectly into her role, and it will advise people to use her gadget even more for this payoff. I think this fits Iana perfectly and should be the next change that comes to her. For Ace, I think they should go down the same route that they went with Hibana, allowing him to choose how many detonate at a single time, so he can choose his Selma to detonate only once or twice. Now, the reason why this would be a useful thing and a good thing is, and I'll give an example of elbow on bottom Oregon, pretend this wall is double reinforced. What you'll typically see players do is, they'll throw an ace charge on this wall, and then they'll shoot the bottom ace charge, because this then makes a hole in which defenders cannot jump through and then potentially do a flank onto bunker. However, what it does do is give attackers a line of sight through elbow to still pressure this angle. So if this is a playstyle which people do use for ace, why not give them the option to be able to turn it to 1 or 2 so they can start doing these head hole aces without having to necessarily destroy their own gadget. Next up we have Zero, and this is a concept I've already thrown out but I love it, and that would be giving him the option to either do an EMP blast from his gadget or the current laser zap blast. This is similar to Zofia, for example, switching between concussion and impacts, and if you use either one of them on the camera, the cooldown applies to both, but that means if you would rather disable a gadget through a wall or a bit more stealthy, you can do that, or if you want to zap and destroy it, you have that option as well. Of course, I would then lower the amount of cameras which Zero has, but I think that would be a really fun addition to his kit. I would also give him the interrogation as a passive ability because he's Sam Fisher and fuck you. Next up we have Flores, and I would give his drone the ability to drive up walls. I mean, just look at his drone. His drone looks like it would stick to surfaces. I mean, it does stick to surfaces when it goes into its explosive mode. So I think it'd be really fun for you to be able to drive Flores' drones up walls, which you can then basically stick to the roof above you and blow up anyone who is above, sort of like an attacking nitro cell. Technically, you can already do this with both drone parkour as well as making punch holes in a soft wall. The drone can actually use this as some form of climbing frame. So if you can already somewhat do it using a little janky method, then why not fully embrace this and allow us to drive our Flores drones up walls? Also, I'm kind of struggling to think of anything because I'd say she is pretty balanced. I guess something I will say is when you are standing and you place a Gnosis shield, it will put you back into standing after it's done, but if you're crouched, it will keep you in crouch. I'd say just tidy up this mechanic and make it, regardless if you're standing or crouched when you place your Talon shield, you will always exit in the crouched animation behind your shield, because I'd say that's quite a little consistency flaw with Osa. Next up we have Sens, an operator I can't believe Ubisoft have actually managed to buff very well in this current season. The only thing I would probably add though is using the gadget trajectory, maybe give us a rough layout to see where the actual ROU will deploy, just to help us understand where the best place to throw this is, because despite the gadget and Sense being better this season, there is still a bit of a consistency issue when it comes to throwing their gadget, so maybe just a bit of a guideline to see where the gadget will roll specifically would be helpful. Next up we have Grim, who is one of the stronger operators on attack. He actually got a little nerf this season by losing one of his canisters, and not saying that he necessarily needs a buff, but something that could be quite cool is when you are in the swarm of bees, it could maybe make like a mechanical bee noise and actually start messing with your audio a little bit. And by that I mean like the noise is a little bit loud in your ear and it can suppress some of the noises of what the attackers are doing. It would just add another layer to Grim's gadget. Next up we have one of my favorite ops, Brava. Now I think design wise Brava is insanely cool. There's so many interactions and she honestly completely changes the game, but ever since her release I don't think she's had a chance to do that at all. And that is due to the fact that her hacks take so long, how easy it is to destroy a clutch drone, and it's just really easy to counter Brava. So what I would like from Brava is either a further distance where you can hack, or more hacks per drone, or a third drone, or faster hacking. I just want Brava to be able to excel a little bit more, because right now I feel like she's way too easy to counter and we're not getting those really cool plays in which she can do. Next up we have Ram, one of my most played attackers, so that puts me in a position to say I do think Ram is a bit too strong when it comes to vertical play. This is a concept both me and Thakil were talking about, and I think firstly she should lose the secondary shotgun. I don't think her level of verticality also warrants her having another thing she can make vertical with. As well as this, I also think they should keep the canister on the back of the boogie, but also add a health bar to the boogie similar to a Kiba barrier, which allows any defenders who are below and not in view of the canister to destroy it, to use their weapons to actually shoot the body of the boogie itself and destroy it. Maybe it can have like a 150 HP health pool, but just give defense more of an opportunity to fight back against a boogie, because impacts being their only counter from below doesn't really make that much sense, because they're still making a hole anyway by throwing said impact. I think defenders just need a little bit more of a chance. And finally, we have Deimos, who is sadly such a balanced operator as well. I don't know what to say, but something that could potentially be cool is don't just limit his tracks to him using his pistol, maybe allow him to use his primary weapons as well. Would that then make him far too strong? Who knows? The pistol is technically the strongest part of his loadout. I kind of like the idea of tracking someone down whilst using my shotgun. And so everyone, there we have it. One rework / rebalance for every single attacker in Rainbow Six Siege as of Operation Collision Point. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about which one of these is your favorite, what would you do differently, and what one would you want most to come to the game. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. Catch you all later. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.